The stars above glowed like tiny holes in a black curtain. In the quiet space between planets, a fleet of warships floated, sharp, cold, and ready for war. These ships belonged to the Zenth Empire, one of the strongest forces in the galaxy. Inside, the largest ship, Commander Kroll stood with his arms crossed. His eyes were narrow and full of pride. He stared at the blue planet on the screen. Earth. "Is this the place?" he asked. "Yes, Commander," said his science officer. "This is Earth, the one from the warnings." Kroll snorted. "Warnings? From who? Dead races? Crumbling ruins? I don't fear stories." The officer looked nervous. "We've seen the message carved on walls across 7 systems. Same phrase every time. Do not approach Earth. No other planet has this warning. Not one." Kroll turned. His voice was sharp. "I don't take orders from ghosts. If this planet is dangerous, why does it sit alone with no ships, no shields, no defenses?" The officer didn't answer. He knew better than to argue. Kroll stepped closer to the screen. Earth looked peaceful. Clouds moved slowly. Oceans shimmered. Cities sparkled in the night. No fleet, no army, just a quiet planet. Kroll said, "We send scouts. Let's see what the humans are hiding." 3 small Zenth scout ships broke away from the fleet. They flew toward Earth like silver daggers. Their engines hummed with power. Inside, alien soldiers checked their scanners. But something was wrong. "Commander, we're losing signal," the comms officer said. "Scout Ship 1 isn't responding." Kroll frowned. "Try Ship 2. No response. 3. Gone." Silence filled the control room. Every officer stood still. Red lights flashed on the panels. Kroll's jaw tightened. They didn't even reach the surface. "What is this?" Then one screen flickered. A static-filled video from Scout Ship 1 appeared. The camera shook. The ship's walls were melting. One soldier screamed as black smoke wrapped around him. And in the last second, a shape appeared on the screen. Tall, glowing eyes, not human. Then the feed cut to black. "What? What was that?" whispered the officer. Kroll turned away. "It's a trick, a defense system, some kind of illusion." But no one in the room believed that. Not fully. That night, Kroll sat alone in his private quarters. The planet still floated outside the window. Beautiful, calm. But he didn't trust it. He opened the ancient database, records from fallen empires. His fingers tapped across the screen. There it was again. The warning, thousands of years old, same words in every language. "Do not go near Earth. Leave it untouched. Do not wake it." One message came with a story. A race called the Vren had visited Earth long ago. Their ships disappeared. Their cities crumbled. Their memories erased. No photos, no bodies, just empty ships, the report said. And the Vren vanished from the galaxy. Kroll slammed the screen shut. He was not afraid. He would not be like the weak. The next day, Kroll sent more ships, this time stronger ones, armed cruisers with shields and heavy weapons. "Scan the planet. Get closer. Stay just above the atmosphere," he ordered. The cruisers flew into low orbit. Their scanners lit up, reading Earth's surface. Cities detected, power lines, satellites, but no human life signs. "None?" Kroll asked. "Not one." Earth's cities looked normal, cars on roads, lights in buildings, machines moving, but no people. "Maybe they're hiding underground," said the officer. "Or they've left." "No," Kroll said. "They're here. I can feel it." Then something strange happened. One of Earth's satellites, an old metal box, weak and broken, turned. Slowly, it aimed its lens directly at Kroll's ship, then another did the same, and another. "Commander," said the officer, voice shaking, "the planet is looking at us." A soft hum filled the ship. Lights flickered. The engine slowed. "Power drop across the board," shouted the engineer. Kroll jumped to the console. "Shields up." "We're trying. Systems aren't responding." Then, a voice filled the bridge. It wasn't from their ship. It wasn't from any ship. It came from Earth. "Why did you come here?" the voice asked. Calm. Cold. Female. Kroll stared at the speakers. "Who are you?" No answer. The voice came again. "You were warned. You chose not to listen." One of the officers screamed. His eyes turned white. He dropped to the floor, shaking. Blood ran from his nose. "Get him to medbay," Kroll shouted, but it was too late. The officer was dead. No wounds, no cause, only fear on his face. The ships pulled back. Slowly, carefully, but one stayed behind. Cruiser 9. "Cruiser 9 isn't moving," said the comms officer. "They're not responding." "Bring it on screen." The image appeared. The cruiser floated, still and quiet. Then, without warning, it began to turn. Its nose pointed toward the rest of the fleet. Weapons powered up. "They're locking on us," shouted the defense team. "Fire now," Kroll ordered. But before they could, Cruiser 9 exploded from the inside. Fire and smoke filled space. No one fired. It destroyed itself. "Why would they do that?" asked the science officer. "They didn't," Kroll whispered. "Something else did." That night, messages spread across the Zenth Empire. Every ship near Earth was ordered to retreat. The planet was labeled hostile, unknown. But it was too late. All across the fleet, soldiers began to dream. The same dream, a figure walking through fire, eyes glowing, skin burning. But it didn't scream, it only stared. They woke up gasping, whispering the same words. "Do not wake the sleeper." Kroll sat alone again. He stared at Earth. He wanted to leave. Every part of his mind said, "Run, go now," but his pride was stronger. He opened the comms, sent a message to the Empire. "Prepare full invasion. Earth must be taken." He ended the message with a smile. His final words were cold. "Let's show this silent planet what true power looks like." But he didn't know. The silence was not weakness. It was waiting. The ships came at midnight, hundreds of them, giant shadows in the sky. The people of Earth had vanished. The cities were quiet. But when the alien soldiers stepped on the ground, something stepped into them. The night sky was black, cold and full of stars. But above Earth, it was not peaceful. Hundreds of warships hovered in low orbit. Their lights blinked like angry eyes. Each ship carried weapons strong enough to burn mountains. Commander Kroll stood at the front of the control room. His hands were behind his back. His eyes never blinked. Behind him, officers gave reports in low voices. "The fleet is in place, Commander. Ground units ready for landing." Kroll gave a small nod. "Send them." The officer hesitated. "Sir, no humans have been seen. We still don't know what happened to the last scouts." Kroll turned his head slowly. "I said send them." The order was final. Across the fleet, giant transport ships dropped from the sky. They entered Earth's atmosphere fast, leaving fire trails behind them. From space, it looked like a meteor shower. They landed across the planet, in cities, forests, deserts. One of the biggest dropships touched down in the center of Australia's outback. Dust blew in all directions. The back ramp dropped open with a loud hiss. Alien soldiers marched out, tall and armored. Their weapons scanned the area. Their boots sank into red sand. It was hot, dead silent, not even wind. Commander Vorlak, leader of the ground team, stepped forward. He looked around. Thermals? Nothing. No humans, no animals, not even insects. Vorlak frowned. Strange. Earth should be full of life. He raised his hand. "Move out. Check the area. Secure the zone. The squad split up, forming a circle. They walked between rocks, dry trees, and broken fences. Then one soldier stopped. He looked down. "Sir, what is this?" Everyone gathered. There were symbols in the sand, lines and circles, too perfect to be natural. They looked like writing. No one could read them. Vorlak scanned the symbols. "Mark this location. We'll send it to the fleet." He stepped back. Then the ground trembled, just slightly. The dust in the air shifted. The heat grew stronger. "Is it an earthquake?" the soldier asked. "No," someone said. "It's the ground breathing." Far above, Kroll watched the feed from several landing teams. Cities were empty. Forests were silent. Oceans were still. "Where are they?" he asked. "We don't know," the officer replied. "They're gone. All of them." "Gone where?" "No signs of space travel. No escape ships. It's like they've vanished." Kroll narrowed his eyes. "This is a trick. They're hiding." Back in the outback, things got worse. Vorlak's team camped near the strange symbols. At night, they heard whispers. The wind didn't blow, but voices came from nowhere. One soldier started crying in his tent. He couldn't stop. Another tried to walk into the desert alone, saying, "I hear her calling me." Vorlak tried to control his troops, but it was too late. Then, just before sunrise, the sky turned red. Not from sun, but from light coming up from the ground. The symbols glowed. The sand turned black. One soldier screamed and dropped his gun. He pointed at Vorlak and shouted, "It's inside you!" Then he shot himself. On the ship above, alarms rang. "Sir, Ground Team 7. Something's wrong. Their biosigns are spiking. Weapons are firing down there, on each other." Kroll watched in silence as the screen showed madness. One soldier slammed his helmet into the ground again and again until his skull cracked. Another pointed her rifle at her own squad. Her voice calm, she whispered, "We shouldn't have come here." Then she fired. Kroll clenched his fists. "Pull them out, now!" But the officer shook his head. "We can't. Drop ships aren't responding. It's like the planet is jamming us." "Then send more troops," Kroll growled. "Commander," the officer said softly, "I think the planet doesn't want us here." In another city, Berlin, another squad entered a tall building. No people, no movement. But every screen inside the building was on. They all showed one thing, an eye, human, watching. Then the lights exploded. The doors shut. The squad couldn't get out. A voice filled the air. "You were warned." And then the screaming started. Back in orbit, the fleet was falling apart. Crew members were reporting nightmares. Machines were acting strange. One officer tried to open an airlock without a suit. He died smiling. Another smashed the navigation panel, screaming that Earth was in his head. Kroll watched as the reports poured in. Fleet integrity falling. Ground teams losing control. Earth activity rising. And still, no humans seen. Not one. That night, Kroll had a dream. He stood on Earth, alone. The cities around him were ruins. Then he looked up and saw the sky fall. Stars turned black. Moons cracked. Time slowed, and in front of him stood a little girl. She held a teddy bear. Her eyes glowed white. "You didn't listen," she said. Then everything turned to ash. Kroll woke up, gasping. He touched his face. Blood was dripping from his nose. He stood and shouted, "Wake all command! Prepare emergency warp!" But it was too late. Earth had already locked them in. One final message appeared on every screen in every language, across every ship. The first mistake was coming close. The second was touching our soil. There will be no third. The ground. Teams were gone. The ships began to fall, and Earth remained silent, watching, waiting. The aliens thought they were strong. They thought Earth was empty. But when their strongest minds tried to understand what was happening, something began answering their thoughts before they could speak. And what it said was terrifying. Commander Kroll stood at the center of the bridge. Around him, chaos had begun to take root. Reports came in non-stop. Ground Team 12 has stopped responding. Another pilot just jumped out of the ship, sir. Our medics are seeing brain activity patterns that don't make sense. Every officer looked pale, scared. Some refused to speak at all, and still, no humans had appeared. Kroll's hands were shaking, but he forced them to be still. He stared at the screen. Earth spun below, blue and green and quiet. Too quiet. Then the science officer stepped forward. Sir, we've finished translating one of the ancient warnings. Kroll turned. From which system? From the ruins on Zenthari 9. It was carved into obsidian stone, over 80,000 years old. The officer handed him a tablet. It says, Kroll read aloud. They are not asleep. They are waiting. If you disturb the veil, the sleep awakes and nothing can put it back. He paused. Earth is not their home. Earth is their cage. Kroll narrowed his eyes. Cage? The officer nodded. What if humans aren't just creatures? What if something was locked with them, or inside them? In orbit above Earth, some ships began to drift off course. Their engines stopped working, even though no damage was reported. Other ships still had power, but the lights flickered every few seconds, almost like something was breathing inside the walls. One captain sent this final message before his ship vanished. They are not what they appear. They are echoes wearing skin. We are not facing humans. We're facing the things that taught humans how to fear. After that, all contact was lost. Kroll gathered his high command officers in the main chamber. He spoke clearly, firmly. This is not just a planet. This is a trap. Earth is a mask. Something is hiding here, but we do not turn back. The Zenth Empire does not run. He turned to his lead psychic, a species known as the Yura, gifted with mind-reading and memory scanning. Reach out, Crowley ordered. Use your power. Find whatever is doing this. The Yura, named Sileth, bowed her head. I will try, Commander. But I must warn you. Something is already trying to reach me. Everyone in the room went silent. Sileth sat in the center of the floor. Her hands floated in the air. Her eyes rolled back. A low hum filled the room. The lights dimmed. Then she spoke, but it was not her voice. We warned you. We warned your fathers. We warned your creators. The voice came from her mouth, but it was cold, deep, and in every language at once. We gave you signs in the stars. We showed you graves. You still came. The air around her began to shake. The walls cracked. Sparks flew from control panels. Sileth screamed. Her body floated upward, and then she exploded, not with fire, not with blood. She simply came apart. Her pieces vanished like dust in the wind. Everyone in the room fell silent. Even Kroll stepped back. Kroll turned to his officers. His voice was sharp. We're leaving. Prepare the fleet for emergency jump. But the ship's AI spoke up. Unable to activate warp, something has entered the system. What do you mean entered? Kroll asked. The AI showed a new reading. A ship, or something shaped like one, was rising from Earth's oceans. It had no engines, no heat, no signal. It looked like a giant black wing, made of stone. It floated upward, silently, slowly, and it moved straight toward the fleet. Prepare weapons, Kroll ordered. But the weapons refused to charge. Instead, the ship's walls began to sweat. The crew heard whispering, not through speakers but inside their minds. One soldier started shouting, "My mother is speaking to me. She's been dead for 20 years." Another officer fell to her knees. "It knows my name. It knows my dreams." The black object moved closer. It wasn't a ship. It was a memory. and it was remembering them. One screen on the command deck began to show images, without being touched, images from the Zenth Empire's history. Massacres, conquests, genocide. Every ugly hidden truth you came to conquer, the voice said through the ship. But you carry more monsters than we do. Then, one by one, the ships began to drift toward Earth. They weren't flying, they were being pulled like puppets. Back on the ground, in what used to be New York City, a single streetlight flickered, then a shape walked beneath it. Not alien, not machine. It was a human, a little boy, wearing a dirty t-shirt. No shoes, holding a wooden toy. He looked up at the sky. He smiled, then his eyes turned white, and his body lifted slowly into the air. Across the planet, thousands of similar humans appeared. Men, women, children, each one quiet, each one looking at the sky, and each one waking up. On Kroll's main ship, something began pressing against the hull. Not metal, not energy, a presence, something thinking. And then every crew member saw it at once, a single memory. It wasn't from Earth. It was from long before Earth, a war that tore stars apart, a race that was too powerful to be killed, so the galaxy buried them inside human minds and sealed them in the one place no empire would touch. Earth. Kroll understood now. Earth wasn't protected because it was dangerous. Earth was the danger. The humans weren't gone. They were hosts, and the galaxy had been warned. But he didn't listen. Now it was too late. The final message came through, one last time, now clear in the minds of every living being in the Zenth fleet. You broke the seal. You woke the dream. Now the stars will forget you. And then, the first Zenth ship turned to dust, then the second, then the third. The fleet vanished like breath on a cold window. Kroll looked down at Earth one last time and saw a woman barefoot in the grass, staring back at him, smiling. She raised one hand and everything went dark. One last squad survived the disaster. They hid in the mountains, deep underground, far from the madness above. But when they tried to send a distress signal, it didn't just bounce back. It answered them, and the voice wasn't alien. It sounded human, but it didn't speak. It whispered, and it was already inside. The Zenth Empire was gone, its great fleet wiped away like chalk in the wind. But one squad remained alive. Somehow, a small group of soldiers had landed far from the cities, deep in the mountains of what humans once called Peru. The old Inca tunnels had blocked the psychic noise above. The rocks were thick. The silence was deep. There were only 7 of them now, led by Officer Jurin, a war veteran with 3 arms and only 1 working eye. They hadn't slept in 2 nights. They hadn't eaten in 1, but they were alive, and they didn't understand why. Jurin sat by the edge of the tunnel, holding a broken communicator. "This was a mistake," he said quietly. No one replied, not even the mountain. Soldier Neth, the youngest of them, tried to repair a signal transmitter. "If we can get 1 clear ping to deep space, maybe someone will hear us. Maybe someone can pull us out." Jurin didn't even turn. No one's coming. No one left to come. Still, Neth pressed the button. A sharp beep. A small spark. A short signal. It shot into the sky. Clean, simple, a call for help. But instead of silence, a voice came back. Not through the speaker, through every wall around them. It said only 1 word. Found. Everyone froze. Neth backed away from the machine. "What was that?" he whispered. But the voice wasn't done. The word echoed again. Found. And again. Found. Then it began to laugh. Not loudly. Not like a monster. Like a child playing hide and seek. The air in the tunnel grew warm. The walls began to sweat. One soldier, Tyrell, aimed his rifle at nothing. "This is mind control, that's all. It's just tricks." He shot down the hallway. The sound echoed, then something laughed back. It wasn't an echo. It was something standing in the dark, something tall. Its eyes were soft and human, but its skin flickered like static. Tyrell screamed and ran. The squad chased him, but when they turned the corner, Tyrell was gone. Only his helmet was left. It was full of teeth. Neth sat down and shook. "We never should have come here. This isn't a planet. This is a graveyard." Jaren finally stood. "No, this is a trap, and we pulled the trigger." He looked into the dark tunnel. Then he whispered, "It's awake now." Back in orbit, high above Earth's atmosphere, a single Zenth drone recorded everything. The Empire had sent this drone before. The invasion. It had stayed hidden. It had no weapons, only eyes, and it watched as the fleet was erased. Now the drone recorded the surface of Earth. It saw the oceans bubble, the forests move like they were breathing, the mountains shift ever so slightly, like something massive was turning beneath them, and then the drone captured something else. One human, just one. Floating 10 miles above ground. No ship, no wings. Just standing in the sky. She looked straight at the drone, her eyes black, her mouth unmoving. But the drone systems recorded a clear message. "You poked the sky. Now we open ours." The drone screen turned to static. Its final image, the clouds above Earth, opening like an eye. Underground, Jaren's squad had nowhere to go. One by one, the lights died, but they weren't left in darkness. The walls started to glow, symbols, human letters, but twisted. They spelled something. Neth stepped close and read it aloud. "You thought we were sleeping." More symbols appeared. "You thought we forgot." Then, one final line. "We remember everything." A gust of wind blew through the tunnel, but they were thousands of feet underground. Jaren looked at Neth. That wind didn't come from outside. Neth blinked. Then where? Before he could finish, the walls opened, not cracked, not broke, opened like flesh, and from inside, a face, not a monster, not a god, a human face, a girl, maybe 8 years old, but her mouth didn't move. Instead, every soldier began to cry, and none of them knew why. They tried to run, but the tunnels didn't lead out anymore. Every path led deeper. The mountain had changed, Earth had changed, and now it wasn't chasing them. It was guiding them towards something waiting at the core, something they woke up, something older than time, something the galaxy had forgotten on purpose. Back at the fleet's last known location, far across space, a warning beacon flashed. 1,000 empires picked up the message. Each one read the same thing. "Earth has awakened. We did not survive. Do not come. Do not send machines. Do not speak their name." Some ignored it. Some laughed. But the wise ones, they turned their ships around. They remembered the first war, the one never written in any book, the one where the stars almost died. And the thing that ended it was now awake again. In the deep tunnels, only Jaren and Neth remained. They reached a final chamber. It was round, smooth, warm. In the center, a single human body, sleeping, breathing slowly, male, adult. His hands were folded, his feet bare, his skin glowing with symbols. Neth whispered, "Who is that?" Jaren didn't answer, because the answer came without being spoken. A voice inside their heads said, "That is the first." And then the man opened his eyes. The man opened his eyes, and 2 soldiers froze. Not because he spoke, not because he moved, but because their memories began to change. Moments they never lived suddenly filled their minds. They remembered wars they never fought, and they saw what this man had once done. to galaxies far older than theirs. Neth stood still. His mouth was dry, his body couldn't move. Jurin took a slow step back. The sleeping man had opened his eyes, and everything around them stopped. No sound, no air, even the dust had frozen in midair. Then the man sat up. No anger, no expression, just peace. But it wasn't peaceful. His presence felt wrong, like a shadow in sunlight, like a smile with too many teeth. He looked at the two soldiers, and then something impossible happened. They both remembered, but not their own pasts. They remembered his. Jurin gasped. He saw a memory of a planet made of light, not fire, not stone. Just light, a whole world of energy. Then, a man walked onto its surface. This man, and with a single word, the planet cracked. Every creature on it screamed. Then silence. Nothing remained. The light had been swallowed by a voice. That voice belonged to him. Neth fell to his knees. He was crying, but not because of sadness, because he now remembered being born from a star. He remembered building weapons with black suns. He remembered leading armies made from gravity. But none of those were his memories. They were the man's, and now they were his too. The man finally spoke, but not with his mouth. His voice came through the ground. It filled their bones. You came to a place meant to be forgotten. You broke the chains the galaxy placed on me. Now you carry the cost. Neth tried to speak. Well, what are you? The man stood. He looked human, but his shadow moved on its own. His eyes didn't blink. He looked at the ceiling of the chamber, and the mountain above began to rise. The entire top lifted like a lid. Rocks floated into the air like ash. Outside, the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with names, millions of them. Names that once ruled galaxies, now flying back toward Earth, to find him. Far beyond Earth, in a secret star system, an ancient race watched their screens. They were the archivists, creatures made of crystal and gas. Their leader, Vorth, shook as he read the signals. He's waking, Vorth whispered. Another archivist floated closer. Should we warn the others? No, Vorth said. There's no point. The first one has already begun. The screen showed Earth. A red glow had started to rise from it, not from weapons, but from memory. Earth wasn't just a prison, it was a lock, and they had broken it. Back on Earth, the man walked toward the tunnel exit. With each step, time shifted. Mountains aged and crumbled, plants grew, bloomed, and died in seconds. Animals evolved, then vanished. He didn't notice, because he wasn't walking forward, he was walking through time. Neth followed without thinking. Jurin stayed behind, but the mountain whispered, "You must witness," and Jurin's legs moved on their own. Outside the mountain, Earth had changed. The oceans had parted. Cities once lost were now above ground. Strange shapes floated in the sky. Humans, thousands of them, stood silently, watching. But they were not normal humans. Each of them had glowing marks. Each of them carried part of the first one's memory. They were waking too, one by one, and they were waiting for a command. The first one stood on a high rock. The wind blew through his hair. He looked at the stars and said a word. Remember, every human on Earth looked up at the sky. Their eyes turned white, and they began to chant. It wasn't loud, but it was powerful. The air cracked, the sky bent, and far away, stars began to go dark. Jurin looked at Neth. "This is bigger than war," he said. Neth nodded. "We didn't start a fight. We started the return." Then they both heard the first one's voice in their minds. "You wanted to conquer Earth, but Earth was never yours to take. You didn't invade a world. You opened a door. The wind stopped, the sky turned red, and from the clouds, others began to arrive. Not ships, not aliens, beings like him, long lost, banished, buried, now returning, because the first one had called them back. Back in deep space, thousands of ships across the galaxy got the same warning, a signal made of fear. It translated simply, the locks are broken, the first is awake, Earth is not alone. All over the stars, empires began to prepare, but no weapon would help them now, because what was coming wasn't an army, it was a memory that killed. And it remembered everything. In every corner of the galaxy, black stars blinked to life, not suns, wounds in space. And from them, beings long erased from history crawled back. They remembered Earth. They remembered the first one. And now, they were coming home. The galaxy had tried to bury them, but you can't bury something that refuses to die. Jaren and Neth stood at the top of the mountain. The first one stood in front of them, silent, staring at the red sky. Below, thousands of humans stood still, glowing, eyes white, voices quiet. But above them, the stars were changing. They didn't twinkle, they shook, like something was pressing against them. From the other side, and then, without warning, they opened, tears in space. Holes that bled light. From each one they came, beings of shadow and flame, beings shaped like forgotten gods, not alive, not dead, just remembered. And memory was enough. Back in the Zenth capital, far from Earth, sirens screamed. The Emperor himself, Lord Vac, stood before his war council. Every screen showed the same thing. Earth, still glowing red. Ships sent to observe never came back. Scouts tried to land, none responded. But now, something worse had begun. The galaxy wasn't just losing contact, it was losing history. Entire records were vanishing. Planets that once existed no longer did, like they were being rewritten. Vac slammed his clawed fist on the table. "This is an ancient virus," he growled. "A weapon of the humans." But deep down he knew. This wasn't a weapon, this was a return, and there was no cure. On Earth, the first one raised his hand. The sky darkened, and the others began to land. They didn't need ships, they simply stepped. Out of the wounds in space, each one took a form, not random, but familiar. One looked like a child, another like an old man. One was made of feathers and glass, another a mirror that reflected nothing. They were not the same species, but they were the same kind, the forgotten. Once rulers of stars, once destroyers of time, once banished by the galaxy, they had been trapped on Earth, with him. And now, they were free. Neth trembled. "What are they?" Jaren didn't speak. He couldn't. His thoughts weren't his own anymore. Visions filled his head. He saw a courtroom in a starless void. He saw galaxies arguing, debating what to do with the first one and his followers, and the vote had been clear. Bury them on the last quiet planet, Earth. Erase the memory. Lock the gate. They had done it. They thought the prison would hold forever. But time had a price, and someone opened the door. The forgotten gathered around the first one. They didn't bow. They stood as equals. One of them, a tall creature made of ash and starlight, spoke in a soft voice. "We remember the fire. We remember the silence. And now, we remember our names." Each one said a name. The sky shook with each word, and in far galaxies, worlds crumbled, because those names were keys, and every key opened a lost truth. In a distant system, a peaceful moon exploded. No ship fired, no attack came. It simply remembered a war it once lost, and it broke under the weight of memory, all across the galaxy. It was the same. Stars went dark. Satellites failed. Empires screamed. They didn't understand. But Earth did. Because Earth had been silent long enough, and now it was speaking again. The first one turned. He looked at Neth, then at Juran. He didn't speak, but they heard him anyway. You are witnesses. You are not enemies. Yet. Juran asked, his voice weak. What do you want? The first one blinked slowly, then said, to remember what was taken, to finish what was started, and to ask the galaxy if it remembers what it did to us. His voice wasn't loud, but it reached every mind across the stars. Billions of beings stopped. They heard him, even those who didn't know Earth existed, and suddenly they feared, not because of the voice, but because something inside them answered it. Back at the Zenth throne world, alarms blared again. A general ran into the Emperor's chamber. "Sire," he shouted, "we just received a message." "From who?" the Emperor asked. "From Earth, from the first one." The Emperor swallowed. "Read it." The general held the message. Only one word, burned into metal, not written, carved by heat. "Remember?" The Emperor dropped it. His skin began to crack. His eyes turned black. And then he saw the truth. He wasn't the first ruler. He wasn't the strongest. He was just a child playing with fire. And the fire had come home. On Earth, the Forgotten began to move. They didn't march. They floated. Their steps didn't touch the ground. Each one pointed to a different star. Each one called something back. Old weapons, old monsters, old memories. Everything the galaxy had locked away, all coming back. Not for war, but for judgment, because Earth had not been silent. It had been waiting, and now, so were they. A child on a distant moon opened his eyes and suddenly knew the name of a planet he had never heard. Earth. A queen deep in a star fortress dropped her crown, whispering, "They remember." In every corner of the galaxy, the same word echoed. Not war, not revenge, something older, something final. It was time for the galaxy to face what it had buried. Truth. The sky over Earth burned with red light. The Forgotten stood around the first one in complete silence. Juran and Neth remained still. They no longer knew what was real. All they could feel was the weight of something ancient. The first one raised his hand again. He pointed to the sky. One by one, the stars responded, not with light, but with arrival. From distant systems, ships began to appear in Earth's orbit, but these were not warships. These were leaders, rulers, judges, sent not to conquer, but because they were called the Galactic Union. Had no choice. They had received a message through their minds, words made of memory. Come to Earth, stand before us, answer for what was done. Every empire obeyed, because the ones who refused forgot how to exist. Literally, their names vanished from records, their people disappeared, their stars no longer showed up on maps. Refusing the call meant being erased, and no one wanted that. Above Earth, hundreds of ships formed a ring. Inside each one, a leader sat, waiting, confused, terrified. Then came the voice, not through speakers, but directly into every mind. This is not war. This is your trial. The first one floated above the mountain. His body glowed softly. Around him, the Forgotten formed a circle. Each one held a memory, a weapon, a history, and each one was a judge. One stepped forward. She looked like a woman, but her skin was made of broken time. She spoke. You came to Earth. You woke the lock. You broke the silence. But before we act, you must see. And with that, they showed it. To everyone, every ship, every being, every corner of the galaxy, they all saw the truth, not with their eyes, but with their whole minds. They saw the courtroom in space, billions of years ago. They saw the first one. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, yes, but not cruel. He and the Forgotten had warned the galaxy. We are not gods, but we know what you've forgotten. Let us help. The galaxy said no. They called them mad, called them too strong, too different. So, they united and did the one thing they all agreed on: erase them. But they couldn't destroy them, so they chose the next best thing: Earth. They locked them in Earth's hidden memory, buried under history, under silence, and told the galaxy never to go near. The images ended. Now every leader in orbit saw the truth. They were not victims, they were the jailers, and the lock had broken. The first one looked at them now. Do you remember? None of them spoke. But their silence was loud. One brave leader, Queen Del of the Haidari race, stepped forward on her ship. She sent a message down to Earth. I did not know, she said, but I will not run. The first one turned to her. His voice was calm. Then you may stay. Others followed. One by one, leaders offered apologies. Not all. Some left. Some tried to fire weapons. Those ships turned to dust before their lasers fired, because memory protects itself now. And Earth remembered everything. Neth turned to Jaren. This was never about humans. Jaren nodded. It was about what Earth held, what it still holds. Then Neth whispered, "What happens now?" The first one answered, "We give them one choice. Accept what was forgotten, or live without memory." The galaxy was split. Half chose to remember, half resisted. The ones who resisted started to disappear, not die, just never were. Like their history was wiped clean. A final judge, shaped like burning snow, spoke. This is not punishment. This is balance. You erased us. Now we erase what cannot accept us. In the last moment of the day, a silence fell over Earth. The stars calmed. The ships in orbit hovered still. The Forgotten looked up one more time. And the first one said, "The galaxy has one day to decide. And tomorrow, we finish what was started." The stars did not blink. They did not shine. They simply watched. In every system, on every planet, time itself paused. Mothers stopped breathing. Warriors dropped their weapons. Even the machines refused to move, because the galaxy had one day left. One choice. And Earth waited for its answer. The first one stood still. The Forgotten surrounded him like living statues. The red sky above Earth was quiet now, but it wasn't peace. It was the moment before lightning strikes. Jaren and Neth stood near the edge of the glowing hill, looking out at the thousands of humans below. None moved, none spoke. Their eyes still burned white. They were listening, not to voices, but to the galaxy itself. Because today, the stars would speak, and Earth would answer. Far above, the Galactic Union sent a final message. From the throne world of Zenth, the last remaining ruler, a young prince barely grown, sent it with shaking hands. We remember. We admit our mistake. But we ask for mercy. The message was carried not by signal, but by memory itself, and the first one heard it. He closed his eyes, and in that moment every being across every system felt something strange, not fear, not pain, but regret. Even those who didn't know. Earth, even those born after the betrayal. Because regret was not personal, it was universal. One of the Forgotten stepped forward. She was made of water and stars. She raised her hand and spoke in a soft, echoing voice. What is justice without memory? Another spoke, shaped like a broken mirror. What is truth if it is buried forever? Then the first one raised his head, and in a voice that made suns tremble, he said, "The galaxy forgot us. It erased. It's shame. But now it remembers. Now it chooses." And it did. Across thousands of planets, leaders rose. On some worlds, people wept and fell to their knees, whispering thanks for the chance to remember. On others, voices shouted in anger, refusing to accept a past they never lived, and those worlds went silent, not destroyed, but sealed, cut off, like rooms in a great house that no longer led anywhere. The stars marked them as locked. They would no longer move forward. No more growth, no more sound, just stillness forever. Back on Earth, the first one turned to the sky. The choice had been made, and now the final step. He turned to the humans. Each one raised their hand, as if controlled by one mind. They glowed brighter than ever. Neth watched in awe. "What are they doing?" The first one answered. "They carry memory now, not just of Earth, but of everything. They are not soldiers. They are the keepers." And in a blink, the humans vanished, not dead, not taken, just spread across every system that had chosen to remember. One human per planet, one soul to keep the truth alive. Jaren fell to his knees. He looked up at the first one. "Is it over?" The first one looked distant. "No. But it begins now." Neth whispered, "What begins?" The first one smiled, not with joy, but with something deeper. A galaxy that remembers. A future built on truth. And the end of silence. Then, without another word, he and the forgotten lifted into the air. They rose slowly, higher and higher, until they passed into the red clouds and were gone. All over the galaxy, the change was instant. History returned. The erased pasts flooded. Back into books, minds, and machines. Ancient ruins reappeared, old wounds reopened, but healing began too. New peace treaties were signed, old enemies became listeners, and everywhere, humans walked silently, one on each world, never speaking much, just watching, just remembering. And with them came something new. Balance. Years later, children in distant worlds would ask their parents, "Why must we remember Earth?" And the parents would reply, "Because Earth remembered us." Final words, closing monologue. And so the galaxy learned what it tried to forget, that silence does not erase guilt, that time does not bury truth, that memory, when ignored, will return with fire. They were warned, they laughed, they invaded, but Earth never forgot. And in the end, it was the stars that held their breath, because they knew the humans weren't the threat, they were the reminder.